Each being has an eternal resting place that is chosen for him or her at the moment of creation. Life is a process of seeking that place and eternal rest. Existence is but a brief aberration in an eternity of death. Power, success, and joy are as transitory as weakness, failure, and misery. Only death is absolute, and then only at its appointed hour, seeking to bring order to the chaos of life, for in death there is finality and a fixedness of state. Be ready for death, for it is at hand and uncompromising. Life should be prolonged only when it serves the greater cause of the death of the world. Jergal was a very ancient deity of death. In a time where the portfolio of death was not divided up among several other deities like in modern-day Forgotten Realms. He is the true original god of death, and he has gone by several names. The final Scribe, the Pitiless One, the Bleak Seneschal. Jergal was frequently depicted as a member of an ancient alien race that resembled a cross between a humanoid and a praying mantis. He was a wizened and insubstantial creature, mummy-like in appearance with grey skin. His elongated skull hosted bulbous yellow eyes, devoid of life, as well as a nose and ears barely distinguishable from the rest of his head. Jergal's lengthy claw-like hands and forearms were covered by a pair of white gloves. Most of his form was also covered, hidden behind a grey shadow-filled cloak that seemed to absorb the very atmosphere around it and moved as if blown in the wind, even if none was present. Its outer surface was a gate to the negative energy plane. In his clutches was a quill with fresh ink and a thick scroll covered in intricate and incomprehensible script. When Jergal spoke, his voice was chilling and seemingly disembodied, echoing with the dry whisper of a tomb that had long been forgotten. Jergal is older than many of the greater gods of Faerun. In the time of Netheril, he was a greater deity himself, with the portfolios of death, murder, and strife. Jergal fomented and fed on the discord among mortals and deific entities alike. When beings slew each other in their quest for power or in their hatred, he welcomed them into his shadowy kingdom of eternal gloom. As all things died, everything came to him eventually, and over time he built a kingdom unchallenged by any other god. But he grew tired of his duties, for he knew them too well, and without challenge there is nothing, and in nothingness there is only gloom. In such a state, the difference between absolute power and absolute powerlessness is undetectable. During this dark era arose three powerful mortals, Bane, Bhaal, and Myrkul, later to be known as the Dark Tree. They lusted after the power Jergal possessed. The trio forged an unholy pact that they would gain such ultimate power or die in the attempt. Over the length and breadth of the world they strode, seeking powerful magic and spells and defying death at every turn. No matter what monster they confronted or what spells they braved, the three mortals emerged unscathed at every turn. Eventually, the trio journeyed into the grey waste and sought out the Castle of Bone. Through armies of skeletons, legions of zombies, hordes of raids, and a gauntlet of liches they battled. Eventually, they reached the object of their lifelong quest, the Bone Throne. As the three mortal adventurers finally approached his Bone Throne, Jergal arose from his throne with a weary expression and said, "The throne is yours. I have grown weary of his empty power. Take it if you wish. I promise to serve and guide you as your seneschal until you grow comfortable with the position." Then, before the stunned trio could react, the Lord of Death asked, "Who among you shall rule?" Since all three mortals wanted to ascend to divinity, they fell to fighting among themselves over who shall claim Jergal's position. Jergal in the end decided to calm them by breaking off his skeletal finger bones and gave them to the contestants with the suggestion to divide the portfolios of the office by engaging in a game of knucklebones. Thus it was that Bane assumed the portfolio of strife, Myrkul the rulership of death, and Bhaal the portfolio of murder. Jergal lost his former stature and became a scribe of the dead, and assisted his master Myrkul in a more humble position. The time of troubles saw the deaths of the Dark Tree, but their influence over Toril was not stopped for good. However, this left Jergal in the service of a new master, Cleric, who had claimed the Dark Tree's portfolios for himself. A decade later, Cleric created the Serenishath, a tome of great power that proclaimed him the one true deity. Cleric unwisely read his own book, a mistake that cost him his sanity and led to the loss of Myrkul's former portfolio to Kelemvor. So Jergal, being true to his office of death, went on to serve Kelemvor until present day. Jergal works well with Kelemvor, but retains his scorn for power-hungry and self-centered Cleric. There has been a shift in alignment for Jergal, since he was more lawfully evil in his heyday, and now more lawfully neutral. He is thought to record the passing of the living and to aid Kelemvor in seeing that souls are properly bound to their appropriate afterlife. He is rarely acknowledged directly, except for being mentioned at funerals and among those who practice the custom of writing the name of the deceased on a sheet of parchment and placing it in a corpse's mouth. The rite is common in places where an individual's grave or tomb isn't marked with the person's name. Few people favor Jergal as a deity, and most who do are concerned with the dispensation of the dead in some way. Priests of Jergal serve communities as undertakers and caretakers of gravesites. The Church of Jergal is now only very small and secretive, a rigidly organized, almost monastic order of scribes known as the Scriveners of Doom. Based largely in lifeless stone mausoleums and dry, dusty crypts, its members spend their days maintaining and extending vast archives of scrolls listing how sentients under their purview passed away and their destination in the afterlife. Only in Tay, where death is a daily fact of life, has Jergal's church undergone a small renaissance. Clerics of Jergal prepare their spells at dusk, a time of day representative of the end of life. On the last night of the year, Jergal's clergy cease their endless toil for a full night. On this holy night, known as the Night of Another Year, the clerics read every name whose death they have recorded from the scrolls they have carefully inscribed over the past year. With a cry of "1 year closer," all the scrolls are then filed, and work begins the next day. The only ritual Jergal's clerics are required to perform is called the scaling. After recording each and every creature's demise, form of death, and destination in the afterlife, Scriveners of Doom are required to sprinkle a light dusting of ash and powdered bone over their inscribed words to blot the ink and mark another small step towards the world's end. So this was the lore video on Jergal and a little bit about the Dark Tree, which are all relevant to Baldur's Gate 3. Since there is also an old temple of Jergal we can encounter in our playthrough from the time of the Netheril, since no more recent temples were built for him after that period, since he gave away his portfolios and lost most of his following. Thank you all for watching, like and subscribe, and see you all in the next video.